I'm delighted to be here this afternoon with Dr. Jens Ambrock, who is the head of Division Economy and Infrastructure at the Office of the Commissioner for Data Protection in Hamburg. Good afternoon, Jens. Thank you so much for agreeing to share from your daily practice with for SIPL's First Friday call.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to lead our message in the World Wide Web.
Certainly. Jens, there's a lot going on, and so I wanted to take this to have you walk us a bit through what is in fact going on. I was interested to know, you are also the co-chair of the task force of the Conference of German Data Protection Agencies on Schrems II. Can you explain a bit what that entails? What are the objectives of this task force, and what can we expect from it?
Yes, I'd like to do so. Indeed, we all have heard of the Schrems II decision of the European Court of Justice, which had been more or less an answer to its Schrems I decision, which has not really been adopted by the data protection authorities. So the Schrems II decision is clearly addressed to the supervisory authority with the clear message that now it's absolutely the time to see some enforcement, and well, not only some enforcement, but also enforcement at a broader range. This is why we, as the German supervisory authorities, have found that Schrems II task force to somehow have a coordinated approach how to enforce data protection in topics of international data transfer. Okay. We have seen a report come out from your colleagues in Berlin a couple of weeks ago regarding their investigation into international data transfers, and the results of it were not very positive, I found. And this is, of course, part of the coordinated nationwide assessment of data transfer habits of companies in Germany and their compliance with Schrems II. Can we expect to see similar reports from your agency and others in the near future? What are the findings? What's going on in Germany on this? Indeed, the paper from our colleagues in Berlin is some outcome, the previous outcome at least, from our coordinated German action. I need to stress that in Germany we have multiple data protection authorities competent in the several regions, the Länder of Germany. Berlin is one of them, Hamburg is one of them, and 9 supervisory authorities are part of that task force, and we have agreed and developed multiple questionnaires concerning several topics where international data transfers are quite common, for example, including employee data, including the use of web space and mail hosting. One further topic is the exchange between entities of a group of enterprises. Topics, areas where data is exchanged quite widely by companies. Well, we've sent those questionnaires to several companies in Hamburg. In Hamburg, we only took the big fishes, which is a bit different from Berlin. They also addressed smaller companies using web hosters from, for example, the US. But in Hamburg, we only addressed the big fishes, and well, what I can tell you at the moment is that they've all answered to our questions using lawyers from big law firms, which will produce numerous pages of answers, and we're still working with those answers, asking questions which are follow-up questions, and well, if we have found that those companies use services from the US or other third countries, as we call them, then we we ask for a roadmap, how long it will take to change to another service within the US. This is still going on. We have not closed those proceedings. We are still in talks. But what we can say is that at least those big fishes in Hamburg, well, they often use US companies for their services, but nearly all of them use providers which do the hosting in European Union, which also can be complicated from time to time. But our expectations from the beginning on has not, well, the situation is not as horrible as we were expecting before, as they are mainly all hosting their data in the European Union. Well, it's at least a situation about which we can talk.
Okay. So maybe not as negative as the Berlin report made it sound, and you're definitely in further negotiations with the companies and also working on toward more practical solutions, which I think is in my view the right approach to a very complex issue. I wanted to have you give me your view. The German data protection agencies have requested, after the Schrems II ruling, a legal opinion from a US law professor, Professor Stephen Vladek, to better understand access to data flowing from Europe to the United States by the US national security services, and what an impact, to ascertain, I assume, the impact that might have on international data flows. I'm not sure how widely known this is, but could you walk us through what motivated you and what the results were, and also give us a bit of an insight into what that means for your agencies, for you and your colleagues? Yeah,
it's of urgent importance to somehow understand the US surveillance law if you need to prohibit or suspend data transfers to the United States. In the end, it's all about FISA 702, the US-American surveillance law. The scope of FISA 702 is electronic communication services, which is quite an open legal term, and we all being Europeans do not have a precise idea what that means in the end. It's a question which, in the end, according to the ECJ, all the data exporters have to answer in their transfer impact assessments. But of course, if we all have to raise that question, it's up to us, being the supervisory authorities, to find a profound answer. And as we all are not US lawyers, we have asked for an expert opinion of Professor Stephen Vladek from the University of Texas. He is quite an expert because he has given opinions for Facebook in the Schrems proceedings. So you cannot say that he is totally pro data protection. It's not some opinion which we have bought in order to have something very strict. We just wanted to have something with someone with a very deep insight into what US security organizations really do. And well, what we had to find out reading his memo was that the phrase of electronic communication service is to be understood quite broad. Our first expectations, and also the expectation of many data exporters, had been that only those big cloud companies or telecommunication providers would fall under that provision, whereas Stephen Bladek has told us that it's also sufficient if a company, for example, producing goods, which has nothing to do with electronic communication, if such a company conducts an internal communication system, and they all do, of course, otherwise they cannot communicate internally. If those internal communication systems exists, then also they are scoped to FISA 702, which basically means that even if there is an internal email system, and there always is, then the email data is subject to FISA 702 and subject to mass surveillance by US security organizations. And well, it's not only restricted to those email data and those data transferred throughout the electronic communication service systems. If there are electronic communication systems, then the intelligence services are allowed to look into all the data which is stored and processed, also in a manual way without electronic communication services. So it looks like, according to Stephen Bladek, the scope of US surveillance law is broader than expected. And we have, of course, published that memo, and all the data exporters need to have a look at that to find out whether the data might be open to surveillance authorities.
Okay, well, you know, I understand if that perhaps the scope in general is broader, but that doesn't necessarily probably mean that you know, everything is in fact being scoped up either. So there's some gradation about that, no?
That's a hot question. Stephen Bladek is not 100% clear according to that, but he well, he strongly goes into that direction, that if there is a communication service in that company, then all the data in doubt needs to be provided. But, well, we are open for a discussion, as we all are not experts in US surveillance law. This is why we've asked for that memo of Stephen Bladek. We've published that, and we are open for a legal discussion. If there are also experts from abroad, you can pretty much mail us or call us about maybe a diverging view on that memo.
Well, if that wasn't a call to action, I don't know what is. Thank you for that. And I do want to end on a maybe practical note, because you said at the beginning that, you know, Schrems 2, the judgment is sort of was seen as the call to action by the data protection agencies, that now is the time for enforcement. You know, your agency in particular has been involved in the past on working more towards practical solutions, you know, with not in direction of enforcement, but how do we go about solving complex issues to the benefit of all involved. And I wanted to learn from you if there are any more of these projects in the making now, and if that is something that your agencies or any of your German colleagues are currently pursuing.
Yeah, indeed. It has always been our approach to find solutions and how to transfer data, because human communication is necessary also for the economy and for the exchange of cultures. If everything was forbidden, then life would be pretty sad. This is why we have always been looking for solutions. Thing is just that this ECJ Schrems 2 decision makes it quite hard for us to find gaps when data transfers, mainly to the US, but also to other foreign countries, still may be possible. and it's not only the Hamburg DPA, it's also a task force, more or less, led by the Bavarian colleagues, have talks with Microsoft, as all companies, nearly all companies in the world use Microsoft Office products, which are now more or less cloud-based. And we need to take a deep dive into what Microsoft systems do, how data is stored, and which guarantees are there to protect data of European users. And well, these talks are far from being far from coming to an end, as it's more than complicated to understand the business models and the several business models of Microsoft products. There will be a report, at least among the supervisory authorities in Germany. We will have a preliminary report on, I guess it's June the 72nd, with first results, how Microsoft products can be used if there is a solution to configure the products so that well, to configure the products so that there are no legal problems. I cannot tell you too much about that, but there'll be news soon.
That's really interesting. I think that's very positive, to be engaging in solution finding and in this way, and so I think that's ending on a very positive note for all of us. So I thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll speak with you, I'm sure, on future products, future projects again soon. Thank you, Jens.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. See you soon.